Welcome to the Daily Record High School Football Insider, a special playoff edition. I'm Daily Record sports editor Aaron Dorksen, along with sports writer Mike Plant. And Mike, we have a pretty special matchup this week. Orville going against Norway in a Division IV Region 13 semifinal. It's going to be played at Medina High School. We've obviously had games that mean more further along the line in the playoffs, but as far as intrigue, what's going to happen when these Bobcats and Red Riders square off, it's hard to really remember another matchup that more people are looking forward to seeing.
Oh, there's no question about that, Aaron. And I think your Tuesday column, your column that ran in Tuesday's Daily Record, really set the stage for the whole thing perfectly, with the emotions from fans, players, coaches, and people who are really not even affiliated with either school. You've got Orville, the kings of Wayne County football without question. They have Wayne County's only state title and making their 22nd playoff appearance, versus Wayne County Athletic League team, Aaron and Norwayne, that is, we've seen them enough times that they're reasonably athletic enough to match up fairly well with the Red Riders.
Yeah, I mean, we're planning a lot of coverage all week, and just thought we'd give some of the history of the matchups. And you know, we really don't even care who wins or loses. I'm actually not even from this area. I'm just a fan of all the teams, and it's fun to see Orville over the years, and it's fun to see the Wayne County League every now and then. Different teams, power shifts. Norwayne's in the playoffs only for the third time, but it's 3 times in the last 4 years, Mike. So they are in a little bit of a role as well. And you know, checking out the matchups on the offense and the defense, you really have to start with Norwayne's offense averaging 47 points a game against Orville's defense, giving up only 15.1 points a game. I did some number crunching, Mike. That's actually Orville's best scoring defense since 1996. There was another defense in 98. It was close, 15.2. I know the numbers can change at the end of the playoffs, but to have Orville's best scoring defense in that long, that's really saying something. And they've only had 4 starters coming back into the year too.
Yeah, and the thing too with those numbers, you know, we all remember what happened in 1998 when the Red Riders won Wayne County's only state championship in football. Taking a look at Norwayne's offense, you know, we've documented this all year, Aaron. It's an offense scoring 47 points a game, and with spearheaded obviously by quarterback Adam Wallace, who has smashed Wayne County Athletic League passing records with over 2,000 yards in the air and 29 touchdowns. The Bobcats are averaging 410 yards a game, and it's a pretty good split between run and pass, 218 yards rushing a game and 192 passing. They get great balance out of their run game with the 3-headed monster Adam Wallace, John Zimmerly, and Tyler Zimmerly, all with over 600 yards rushing, and also put balance in the passing game. Wallace buys himself time and has a number of targets, the main ones being John Maybaugh and Brady Berger last week in their first-round win over Brookfield, a 42-7 victory. Wallace was 12 out of 16 through the air, 270 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So Orville's defense, obviously it will be the best defense that Norwayne's seen this year, but the Bobcats certainly present a challenge, Aaron.
Yeah, they sure do. And you mentioned when Adam Wallace, when he eludes the initial rush and resets that pocket, gives his receivers more time to get into their routes. I was over at Orville this week talking to Coach Doug Duvall, talking to defensive coordinator Jason Haley, some of the players, and that's what they said is the whole key to stopping them is Adam Wallace, and especially containing him. Coach Duvall said they're not going to do anything different than they do other weeks as far as their rush, because that's always a goal, is to contain the quarterback. This Orville defense only has 4 returning starters, surprisingly. Nose guard Trevor White, inside linebacker Mason Monheim, Stuart Turner at cornerback, and Larice Wally Woods at the position they call bandit. But boy, the other guys stepped in to make it the unit it is. It's not the biggest defense they've had, but Jason Haley actually said he thinks it's the fastest that he's coached, which is more high praise. On the line with Trevor White as the nose guard, they also have Zane Vierheller and Ronnie Ledemaki. Trevor Summers, a sophomore, has stepped in. Looks to be the next in a long line of great Orville linebackers. Dylan Lemon, unbelievable at defensive end. He has 10 sacks and 13 tackles for loss. Joel Zook is a linebacker. Brandon Johnson's a cornerback. Tyrone White, a safety. Alex Sampson and Drew Brenner also get in there. But, of course, you can't talk about the Orrville defense without starting with Mason Monheim, a repeat OCC Defensive Player of the Year. He's Orrville's all-time leader in games played and all-time leading tackler. And it's going to be great to see him out there in a matchup like this.
Yeah, and if you talk about him being the all-time leading tackler, that's covering a lot of ground all the way, farther back than even his current coach, defensive coordinator Jason Haley, who's also one of the all-time Orrville greats. Just to touch on that a little bit more before we take a break here, Norway's offensive line, there's a story on them in Wednesday's Daily Record, has their coach Joe Harbor said that they do a pretty good job against quicker, smaller offensive lines. The one game they lost this year was against Smithville, which is more of a big physical type team. But again, I don't think they've gone up against this type of quickness on the defensive front, especially with Trevor White, the nose guard, who seems to be in the backfield an awful lot, and as you said, the great Mason Monheim. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Orrville's offense versus the Norwayne defense on the Daily Record's High School Football Insider. Welcome back to the Daily Record's High School Football Insider, our special playoff edition as we preview what we've been terming it as Wayne County Showdown, the big Division IV Region 13 semifinal game between the 10-1 Norwayne Bobcats and the 8-3 Orrville Red Riders, Saturday night at Medina's Ken Duke Stadium, which is a great venue for football.
5,400 seats and who knows, 6,000, 7,000 fans. I don't know. I think it'll be a great crowd.
It sure will, and to take a look at Orrville's offense, Aaron, of course, I covered the game last week when they pounded LeBray 53-14, and Drew Brenner made his first start at quarterback for the Red Riders, and looked like he'd been playing a position all season, really. He just he ran the ball, he rolled out, he's athletic, he threw for 213 yards, ran for another 78. Of course, he's got his stud running back, Mason Monheim. We've talked about his linebacking skills, but he went over 1,000 yards rushing for the season in last week's game and had 3 third-quarter touchdowns. And the thing with Orrville, they've got such great balance, too. I mean, they've got Monheim, and now with Brenner taking over for the injured Kyle Lichty at quarterback, offers just another threat in the backfield. I know that last week during the game, he would roll out, and teams have to honor his ability to run the ball, Aaron. And he's got a pretty good arm too. He zipped the ball in there, and of course he's got a solid receiving corps led by the ultra speedy Stuart Turner Jr., who is a threat not only to get deep by people because he's the fastest kid in the area, but also, last week he had a big 70-yard touchdown to put the Riders ahead for good, and that was on like a 10-yard pass, a little hitch, and his yards after catch are something that Norway's certainly going to have to watch. With Brenner, who was the other standout wide receiver, Doc, they've obviously had to shift some other guys in there, but Cody Weaver had an 85-yard kickoff return. Dylan Lemon has been a pretty good weapon at times. So Brenner has a lot of targets to choose from. I guess if I had to wrap things up and talking about the Orrville offense, last week, for the third time in 4 weeks, 0 turnovers for Orrville, which is always a big key. I mean, there's no questioning the talent they have on that side of the ball, and if they don't make mistakes, they're awfully tough to beat.
Yeah, I mean, turnovers at this time of year and capitalizing, cashing in when you get down close, too. You don't want to leave any points on the board, so those are 2 huge things you look at. As far as Norway's defense, one thing we haven't touched on yet, everyone would agree Norway plays in the easier conference, the weaker conference, as far as them being smaller schools for the most part, although, every year the Wayne County League has its standouts. So Norway did have some pretty easy games, but, this past week, Mike, they were in a Division IV Region 13 playoff game. It's the same Now they're in the same division as Orville, and Norway's coming off two pretty tight, close games, Smithville and Hillsdale. So really some of that earlier stuff is, to me, it's out the window. They've played some tough games, and they played Youngstown Ursuline in the playoffs last year, although they lost to the state champs. So they played in some big games too, and their defense was very impressive last week against Brookfield. They had a kid that was almost with 2,000 yards rushing coming into the game, and they held Brookfield to 29 rushes for 83 yards. Brookfield did move the ball some, passing the ball 181 yards. At least a third of that was on like a wheel route. They hit that star running back out of the backfield. So it was an outstanding defensive performance. Leading this Norway defensive charge up front, they have Caleb Barb, Lawrence Wolf. Wolf, a lot of people think, is the standout. He's one of the bigger guys and experienced. Cody Scruggs, John Zimmerly gives you good speed rush at the linebacker. Naturally, that's where you find your two leading tacklers, and that's John Wilson. He had 126 tackles through the regular season. Adam Wallace, still hard to believe that he turns around and is one of the leading tacklers too, the way he plays quarterback, 116. And then another big question, another matchup people are wondering is, does Norway have the athletes in their secondary to stop Orville's explosive playmakers? You know, so far it looks like they do have some pretty good athletes. John Maybaugh, big 6'2", rangy kid. He has 4 interceptions. Dustin Greer is a little undersized at cornerback, but he will take on anyone that runs at him, get underneath him with his wrestling moves and make the tackle. Caleb Harris is a big kid back there. I don't know if I left any other guys out that play DB, but those are some of the ones that come to mind. So there you have it, the matchups on the offense and defense completed, and we'll take a break and wrap things up with some of Mike and my keys to the game. Welcome back to our final segment here. Let's go over keys to the game. Mike, if Norway's going to win this game, what do they have to do?
Well, I think, Aaron, first and foremost, they can't let the moment overcome them, obviously. Orville is making their 22nd playoff appearance, and obviously the kids that are on the current roster with a run, including a run to the state Final Four last year, have the experience factor. But then again, Norway's making their third playoff appearance in the last 4 years. So, and they've been in some big games. So I don't think, once the whistle blows and the ball's in the air, I think that stuff kind of goes out the window. As far as the game, obviously I think they have to protect Adam Wallace, who does it all, does a little bit of everything for the Norway Bobcats. Obviously, I don't think Norway's faced a defense as good as Orville's this year, and talking to some of their linemen, they know they've got a real tough task in front of them. So offensively, I would say protect Wallace, and I think they need to run the ball a little bit to kind of establish that running game. The game they got beat against Smithville, they really didn't have a chance to do that. Even when they had the ball, they couldn't get the running attack going. So I think they need to be more than one-dimensional. And then defensively, obviously, if you can't stop Mason Monheim, you're going to get a healthy dose of him. And also, I think you have to control Stuart Turner Jr. because he's shown in some games in Orville maybe hasn't played that well. Boom, a punt return or takes a short pass like he did last week and takes it 70 yards to the house. He can change a game just like that. So I would say, you got to watch Turner. And if you let Monheim start rolling, it could be a very long night for the Bobcats.
For Orville, I would just say keep doing what they've been doing. We mentioned their defense, only giving up about 15 points a game. Offensively, keep mixing the run and the pass. Keep having Drew Brenner make the big plays. When Orville's on defense, doesn't take a football expert to know you have to stop Adam Wallace, contain him, don't let him break down the plays, and just remember the Red Rider tradition. I mean, so many great years for Orville, and just even last year in the Final Four. Just going to be exciting matchup. It'll be exciting to also individually some of the themes. You have Adam Wallace and Mason Monheim. Have two all-around complete football players. Sure, we'll have a few one-on-one matchups with them. So those are my keys of the game.
Yeah, and actually, Aaron, those are two of the better football players I've seen in my time in this business, which is a pretty long time.
I'd
So,
agree, yep.
you know, between the two of them, we should see some nice collisions. And now I guess all that's left is to play the game. We'll be out in full force Saturday night in Medina with complete coverage in Sunday's Daily Record
Thanks for watching.
and reading.